The great hall of the Galactic Assembly was silent. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of worlds sat in their seats, watching the small human woman walk toward the speaker's platform. Her footsteps echoed in the massive chamber like the beating of a drum. Ambassador was not tall. She was not physically impressive, but something about the way she moved made every creature in the room feel uncomfortable. She walked like she owned the place. She walked like she was not afraid of anything. The Galactic Assembly had existed for 10,000 years. It was a place where species came together to trade, to talk, and to keep peace. Most new species who joined were nervous and humble. They understood that they were small compared to the great powers of the galaxy. Humans were different. "Welcome, representative of Earth," said the Assembly chairman, a tall being with gray skin and 6 eyes. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking slightly. "We have heard much about your species." Smiled. Several delegates in the front row moved back in their seats. When humans smiled, they showed their teeth. Most species only showed teeth when they were about to attack. "Thank you for having us," said. Her voice was warm and friendly. This somehow made things worse. "Humanity is honored to join the galactic community. We come seeking friendship and trade." In the back of the chamber, a delegate from the collective made a wet, gurgling sound. "Friendship," he repeated. "Yes, we have read your history files, human. Your species has a unique understanding of friendship." The Assembly had spent 50 years studying humanity before allowing them to join. What they found had terrified them. Earth was a death world. Its gravity was crushing compared to most inhabited planets. Its climate swung from burning hot to freezing cold. Its oceans were filled with monsters. Its land was covered with predators. And somehow, humans had not only survived there, they had conquered it. But that was not the frightening part. The frightening part was what humans did to each other. Most species in the galaxy had 1 or 2 major wars in their entire history. These wars were usually short and ended quickly when one side realized they were losing. This was logical. This was reasonable. Humans had fought thousands of wars. They fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over religion, over nothing at all. They developed weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. They created poisons that could kill millions. They built machines designed only to cause suffering. And they kept detailed records of everything, as if they were proud of it. "We are a passionate species," admitted. "We have made mistakes, but we have also learned from them. The humans who stand before you today are not the same as those who fought in our past." This was true. Humanity had united 200 years ago after a war that nearly destroyed their planet. They had looked at the ashes of their civilization and decided, finally, to work together. They had rebuilt. They had reached for the stars. They had become something new. But they had not forgotten how to fight. 3,000 light years away, Captain sat in his command chair on the warship Eternal Dawn. He was reading a report on his tablet, and his face was grim. "Another attack," he said to his second-in-command, Lieutenant. "The Syndicate hit the mining colonies in the Outer Reach. 1,400 civilians dead. The Assembly's peacekeeping forces arrived too late to help." His expression hardened. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. "The Assembly's peacekeepers are useless. They're trained to observe and report, not to fight. That's why they're calling us." The Syndicate was a nightmare. They were insect-like aliens with armored bodies and razor-sharp claws. For 30 years, they had terrorized the edges of civilized space, raiding colonies, stealing resources, and taking slaves. The Assembly had sent fleet after fleet against them. None had succeeded. They were too fast, too brutal, too willing to die for their cause. They attacked without warning and vanished before help could arrive. They knew no mercy and expected none in return. "What kind of response are they requesting?" asked. Set down his tablet. A small smile crossed his face. "They're not asking for regular forces. They specifically requested the Special Operations Division. On a hidden station orbiting a dead moon, Commander gathered his team. There were 12 of them, 6 men and 6 women. They wore black uniforms with no markings. Their faces were calm and focused. These were not ordinary soldiers. They had been selected from millions of candidates. They had survived training that killed 4 out of every 10 people who attempted it. They had been pushed beyond the limits of human endurance and come out stronger on the other side. They were the tip of humanity's spear. "The target is the Syndicate," said, pulling up holographic images of the aliens. 40,000 warriors, heavily armed. They've been untouchable for 3 decades. Sergeant studied the images with her cybernetic eye. Their main base is on Prime. Orbital defenses, ground installations, the works. The assembly tried a direct assault 5 years ago and lost 800 ships. "And they want us to succeed where 800 ships failed?" Corporal Minu asked. He did not sound worried. He sounded curious. Looked at his team. They were not afraid. They were never afraid. Fear had been trained out of them long ago, replaced with something colder and more useful. "They want us to remind the galaxy," he said quietly, "why humanity should never be underestimated. Pack your gear. We leave in 6 hours." The galaxy had heard stories about humans. They were about to learn that the stories were not exaggerations. They were understatements. The had ruled through fear for generations. Their warriors were the strongest in the outer reach. Their ships were the fastest. Their cruelty was legendary. When they came for a colony, there was no hope. There was only death. They did not know what was coming for them. The drop pods fell through the atmosphere of Prime like black tears falling from the sky. They made no sound. They gave off no heat signature. They were invisible to every sensor they possessed. Inside one of these pods, Commander checked his equipment one final time. His rifle was loaded. His blade was sharp. His armor was sealed. Around him, he could hear the breathing of his team through the communication system. Calm, steady, ready. The pods hit the ground 7 kilometers from the primary target, a communications hub that connected all operations across 12 star systems. Without it, the Syndicate would be blind and deaf. Their fleets would not know where to go. Their armies would not know who to kill. "Landing successful," reported. "All units check in." 11 voices responded. Everyone had made it. Specialist pulled out her scanner and swept the area. The screen filled with red dots, enemy signatures everywhere. "We have patrols every 200 meters," she said. "Guard towers with overlapping fields of fire, motion sensors, pressure plates. This place is locked down tight." "Expected," replied. "Take the eastern approach and disable the sensor grid. Minu, find high ground and provide overwatch. Everyone else with me." They moved out in perfect silence. The night on Prime was dark and cold. 2 moons hung in the sky, casting strange shadows across the rocky landscape. The wind carried the sound of distant machinery, factories that never stopped, producing weapons and ships for the Syndicate's endless wars. The first guard never saw them coming. He was standing at his post, compound eyes scanning the darkness, claws clicking together in boredom. This was a safe posting, deep in Syndicate territory. Nothing ever happened here. Nothing could threaten them here. A hand closed over his mouth. A blade slid between the plates of his armor. He was dead before he could make a sound. Lowered the body gently to the ground. Behind him, his team was already moving to the next target. They worked without speaking, communicating through hand signals and years of training. Each one knew exactly where the others would be. Each one trusted the others completely. "Eastern sensor grid is offline," his voice whispered through the comm. "Proceeding to secondary target." "Copy, Minu, status on the guard tower." 4 hostiles down. Tower is secure. You're clear to proceed." Inside the communications hub, things were peaceful. Technicians monitored screens. Officers reviewed reports. Guards stood at their posts, bored and restless. Warlord sat in his command chair, reading the latest updates from the front lines. The raids were going well. 3 more colonies had fallen. Thousands of slaves were being transported to processing facilities. Everything was exactly as it should be. But something felt wrong. Had not survived 30 years of warfare by ignoring his instincts. He was a creature of battle, hardened by countless fights, by weapons that should have killed him. And right now, every part of him was screaming that danger was close. He reached for the alarm button. The window behind him exploded. Spun around, claws raised, mandibles spreading for a war cry. But the human was already inside, already moving, already firing. 2 guards fell before they could raise their weapons. A third managed to draw his blade before a knife buried itself in his throat. The warlord lunged forward, determined to tear this intruder apart with his bare claws. He was 3 times the human size. He was covered in natural armor. He had killed hundreds of enemies in personal combat. The human, his attack like it was nothing. Then something hit from behind, another human appearing from nowhere. A blade found the gap in his armor, sliding between plates, piercing something vital. Pain exploded through his body. He fell. Commander stood over the dying warlord, his face completely calm. "Communications hub secured," he reported through his comm. "Uploading the virus now." The virus was elegant. It did not simply destroy, it confused. It sent contradictory orders to every ship and station. Attack here. No, retreat there. Reinforce this position. No, abandon it immediately. Within hours, the syndicate's perfect coordination would dissolve into chaos. "Upload complete," Specialist confirmed. "We have maybe 15 minutes before they realize what happened. Then we're already gone. All units fall back to extraction point." They disappeared into the night, as silently as they had come. When the reinforcements finally arrived, they found only bodies. The communications hub was burning. The warlord was dead, and there was no sign of whoever had done this. But there was a message, burned into the wall with a laser torch. 3 words in the common galactic language. "We are coming." The syndicate had faced enemies before. They had crushed rebellions, destroyed fleets, and brought entire civilizations to their knees. But they had never faced anything like this. In the darkness of space, heading toward their next target, the team prepared for what came next. They cleaned their weapons. They checked their equipment. They reviewed the intelligence on their next objective. No one spoke of victory. No one celebrated. There was still work to do. The galaxy had only seen the beginning. The real terror was yet to come. And somewhere in the outer reach, 40,000 warriors were about to learn why humanity's special forces were feared above all others. The hunt had begun. Fear spread through the syndicate like fire through dry grass. No one knew what had happened on Prime. The official story was that rebels had attacked the communications hub, but the whispers told a different tale. Humans, only 12 of them. They had walked through the most secure installation in syndicate space like it was nothing. They had killed Warlord in his own command center, and they had vanished without a trace. Admiral slammed his claw against the table, cracking the metal surface. Around him, his advisors flinched. The Admiral was not known for his gentle temper. 12 humans, he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. 12, and they destroyed our entire communications network in a single night. Sir, we are already working to repair. Repair, spun to face the speaker, a thin officer with nervous eyes. The damage is done, our fleets are scattered, our orders are confused, we look weak. He leaned closer, mandibles clicking, and weakness invites attack. The syndicate had survived for 30 years because everyone feared them. They were the predators. They were the hunters. No one challenged them because everyone knew what would happen if they did. But now something had challenged them, and it had won. "Find these humans," ordered. "Find them and bring me their bodies. I want every ship, every soldier, every resource dedicated to hunting them down. Do you understand?" His officers nodded quickly and hurried from the room. Turned to stare out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, 12 humans were planning their next move. He would find them, he would destroy them, and he would remind the galaxy why the Syndicate was feared. But the humans were not hiding, they were hunting. On a frozen moon 3 systems away from Prime, gathered his team around a holographic map. Red dots marked Syndicate positions across the outer reach. There were hundreds of them, bases, ships, factories, slave camps. "The virus bought us time," said, "but it's not enough. They are too big, too spread out. If we try to fight them directly, we'll lose." "So we don't fight them directly," Sergeant said. She pointed to several dots on the map. "We hit their leaders, take out the people giving orders. Without coordination, their forces will fall apart." "That's 17 targets across 9 systems," Lieutenant observed. "Even for us, that's a lot." Nodded. "We don't need to hit all of them. We just need to hit enough to make them paranoid, to make them afraid, to make them turn on each other." He zoomed in on one particular dot, a space station orbiting a gas giant. "And we need to make an example. Admiral is here. He's the supreme military commander of the entire Syndicate. If he dies, their military structure collapses." "Getting to him won't be easy," Minyu said. "That station is a fortress." "It will be." Eyes were cold. "But first we need to break their spirit. We need to show them that nowhere is safe. No one is protected. They can run anywhere in the galaxy and we will find them." Over the next 3 weeks, the human team struck again and again. They hit a weapons factory on Minor, destroying production lines that supplied half the Syndicate's fleet. They killed Admiral Vortex in his own bedroom, leaving his guards alive to spread the story. They raided a slave processing facility, freeing 2,000 prisoners and burning the complex to the ground. Each attack was fast and brutal. The humans appeared from nowhere, killed everyone who needed killing, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They left no evidence except bodies and fear. But the most terrifying part was that they left survivors. Guards who had seen nothing but shadows before their friends died. Officers who woke up to find their commanders missing and strange messages carved into the walls. Slaves who whispered about the silent warriors who showed no mercy to their enemies, but protected the innocent with their lives. The stories spread faster than any ship could travel. "They're ghosts," a captain told his superiors, one of the few survivors from a destroyed convoy. His compound eyes were wide with terror. "We couldn't see them. We couldn't hear them. They killed everyone around me and then they stopped. They looked right at me, and they let me go." His voice cracked. "They wanted me to tell you. They wanted you to know they're coming." The Syndicate began to fall apart. Admirals accused each other of treachery. Commanders abandoned their posts and fled for neutral space. Border fleets turned their weapons on each other, convinced that spies had infiltrated their ranks. The empire that had terrorized the outer reach for 3 decades was eating itself alive. On a refugee ship heading for assembly space, a young alien child asked her mother about the humans. "Are they monsters?" the child asked. "Like the..." The mother looked out the window at the stars. "No," she said quietly. "They are monsters. The humans are something else. They're the ones who fight monsters." Back on the frozen moon, reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Syndicate was in chaos. Their fleets were scattered. Their leadership was decimated. Everything was going according to plan. But the mission was not over. Admiral was still alive. As long as he lived, the Syndicate could rebuild. They needed to cut off the head of the snake once and for all. "The fortress station," said to his team. "That's our final target. We take it down and this war is over." His team looked at the tactical data. The station was massive, 300 kilometers of armored hull, bristling with weapons, protected by thousands of elite warriors. It was impossible. But impossible was what they did best. "Prep for final assault," ordered. "This ends now." Fortress Prime hung in the darkness of space like a metal moon. It was the largest military station in the outer reach, 300 kilometers of weapons, armor, and death. 8,000 defense turrets covered every approach. Shield generators powerful enough to stop a supernova protected its hull. And inside, 5,000 of the Syndicate's most elite warriors waited for battle. Admiral had retreated here after the attacks began. He had surrounded himself with his best troops and declared that any human who came close would die screaming. He believed he was safe. He was wrong. On a small ship hidden behind an asteroid, his team studied the fortress. The holographic display showed every defense system, every patrol route, every potential weakness. There weren't many weaknesses. 12 defensive rings, Minu said, pointing at the display. The outer ring alone has enough firepower to destroy a battle fleet. Getting close is suicide. And if we somehow get past the defenses, added, we still have to breach the hull, navigate through kilometers of corridors filled with enemy soldiers, and reach the command center in the heart of the station. She paused. "Commander, I've run the numbers. The odds of success are less than 1%. Looked at his team. They were tired. They had been fighting for weeks without rest. They had lost friends. They had pushed themselves beyond what anyone should survive. But not one of them suggested giving up. 1% is not zero," said quietly. "And we've beaten worse odds before. This is what we trained for. This is why we exist." He stood up. "I won't lie to you. Some of us won't make it back. Maybe none of us will. But if we succeed, we end this war. We save millions of lives. We show the galaxy that there is no place evil can hide where we won't find it." Silence filled the ship. Then Sergeant stepped forward. "Tell us the plan, Commander." The plan was insane. But insane plans were the only kind that worked against impossible targets. Corporal and Specialist would pilot a captured shuttle toward the fortress. They would broadcast a distress signal, claiming to be refugees from a destroyed base. When the station's weapons locked on, and they would lock on, the shuttle would detonate its reactor. Not to destroy, to blind. The electromagnetic pulse from the exploding reactor would disable the fortress's sensors for exactly 43 seconds. In those 43 seconds, the rest of the team would launch from the asteroid in thruster suits, small devices that could push a human through space at incredible speed. They would hit the station at a maintenance hub on the lower section. Had found it by studying thermal data, a small weak point that didn't appear on any official map. They would cut their way in, navigate through service corridors, and make their way to the command center. They would kill, they would broadcast his death to every syndicate ship, and they would end this war. "What about getting out?" Lieutenant asked. Was quiet for a moment. "We'll figure that out after." Everyone understood what that meant. At 3:47 station time, the assault began. And flew their shuttle toward Fortress Prime, responding to angry demands with calm voices. They played their role perfectly, desperate refugees seeking shelter, begging for help. The fortress's weapons locked on anyway. They were taking no chances. "Reactor critical in 5 seconds, reported. His voice was steady. "It's been an honor." "The honor is ours," replied. "See you on the other side." The shuttle exploded in a flash of light and energy. The electromagnetic pulse washed over the fortress like a wave. Sensors went dark. Weapons lost their targets. For 43 precious seconds, the most powerful military station in the outer reach was blind. 10 shadows streaked through the void. The thruster suits were not comfortable. They were not safe. They were designed for one purpose, to get humans where they needed to be as fast as possible. The team shot toward the fortress at speeds that would have killed most species. They hit the maintenance hub exactly on target. Was first through the airlock, her blade already drawn. A maintenance worker turned toward her in surprise and died before he could scream. The others poured in behind her, moving with the perfect coordination that came from years of training together. They were inside. Above them, alarms were starting to sound. They had realized something was wrong, but they didn't know where to look. The fortress was too big, too complex. The humans could be anywhere. "Move fast," ordered. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they find us." They ran through corridors that hadn't seen living beings in years. They climbed through maintenance shafts and crawled through ventilation systems. They killed anyone who saw them, quickly, quietly, leaving no survivors to raise the alarm. They lost at the second checkpoint. She was covering the rear when a patrol appeared from a side corridor. She took 3 of them down before the 4th one got lucky. A blade caught her in the side, piercing her armor. "Go," she said through gritted teeth, raising her rifle. "I'll hold them." Hesitated for half a second, then he nodded. "Make it count." Smiled, "Always do." The team moved on. Behind them they heard gunfire, explosions, screams, then silence. They lost at the reactor junction. A hidden security system activated, automated turrets that emerged from the walls and filled the corridor with fire. She threw herself in front of the team, taking the shots meant for them. "Clear," she gasped into her comm. It was her last word. 8 soldiers remained when they reached the command center doors. Looked at his team, Minu's partner and 3 others. They were wounded, exhausted, and outnumbered. But they were not defeated. "This is it," said. "Whatever happens next, I'm proud of every one of you. Now let's finish this." He pressed his hand against the door controls. The doors exploded open, and 500 warriors turned to face them. The command center of Fortress Prime was enormous. It stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction, filled with control stations and tactical displays. And standing between the humans and Admiral were 500 of the Syndicate's most elite warriors. They were the best they had. Each one had survived dozens of battles. Each one had killed hundreds of enemies. Their armor was thick. Their weapons were sharp. Their loyalty was absolute. Admiral stood behind them, his mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. "Humans," he called out, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have come so far, you have killed so many of my soldiers, and for what?" He gestured at the army before him. "You are 8, we are 500, this is where your story ends." The smoke from the destroyed doors was still clearing. Through it, 8 figures emerged. Their armor was covered in blood. Their weapons were raised. Their faces were calm. Commander looked at the army before him. He looked at his team, Minu, and the 3 others who had survived this far. They were wounded, tired, outnumbered 60 to 1. And not one of them took a step back. "We didn't come here to survive," said quietly. "We came here to win." He raised his rifle. The battle that followed would be studied by military scholars for centuries. They would watch the recordings and try to understand how 8 humans could fight 500 elite warriors in a space designed to give the defenders every advantage. Most would fail to understand, because what happened in that command center was not just about training or tactics or weapons. It was about something deeper, something that humans had carried with them since they first walked upright on their deadly world. The will to fight, the refusal to surrender, the absolute determination to protect what they loved, no matter the cost. This team did not fight as individuals. They moved as one being, covering each other, creating openings, striking at exactly the right moment. They used the enemy's numbers against them, drawing them into each other's fire, turning the massive chamber into a maze of death. Became a blur of motion, her blade finding the weak points in armor with surgical precision. She moved through the enemy like water through rocks, untouchable, unstoppable. Bodies fell around her like leaves in autumn. Minu found a defensive position and turned it into a killing ground. His rifle cracked again and again, each shot finding a target. They tried to rush him 3 times. They failed 3 times. Disappeared into the chaos, appearing behind enemy lines to strike at commanders and then vanishing before they could respond. They began to fear every shadow. Every corner could hide death. And led from the front, cutting a path toward with a fury that made the warriors hesitate. He was wounded in a dozen places. Blood ran down his face, but he kept moving. He kept fighting. He kept killing. The battle lasted 11 minutes. 11 minutes that changed history. When it was over, the command center floor was covered with bodies. 483 warriors had fallen. The remaining few had fled, their courage finally breaking. But the victory had cost everything. 3 more humans had fallen during the battle, heroes whose names would be remembered forever. Only 5 remained standing, Minyu and an admiral still lived. He stood alone now, surrounded by the bodies of his elite guard. His armor was cracked. One of his arms hung useless at his side, but his eyes still burned with hatred. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible." Walked toward him. His rifle was empty. His armor was falling apart, but his eyes were steady. "Nothing is impossible," he said. "It's just difficult." Lunged with a roar of rage, his remaining claw slashing towards throat. He was still fast, still deadly, still one of the greatest warriors that had ever produced. The attack and drove his blade into the admiral's chest. "Vel, broadcast this," ordered. His voice was tired but steady. "Every syndicate frequency, every ship, every station, let them see what happened here." Minyu reached the communications console. His fingers moved across the controls. Within seconds, the image of the fallen admiral was being transmitted across the outer reach. The syndicate saw their supreme commander lying dead at the feet of humans. They saw the bodies of 500 elite warriors. They saw 5 wounded humans standing victorious in the heart of the most powerful fortress in their empire. The war was over. The extraction came faster than anyone expected. Assembly ships had jumped into the system the moment they detected the assault. They sent shuttles that reached the fortress just as the remaining forces were trying to organize a counterattack. The 5 surviving humans were pulled from the station under heavy fire. They collapsed onto the shuttle floor, 2 exhausted to speak, 2 wounded to stand. But they were alive, and they had won. 3 months later, the syndicate formally surrendered to the Galactic Assembly. Their empire was dissolved. Their slaves were freed. Their weapons were destroyed. The news spread across every world in the galaxy. The great terror of the outer reach, the empire that had resisted 47 species for 3 decades, had been brought down by 12 humans. 12. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador spoke to the gathered delegates. This time, no one flinched when she smiled. "Humanity seeks only peace," she said. "We want to trade, we want to cooperate, we want to build a better future for all species." She paused. "But we will also protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is not a threat, it is a promise." The chamber was silent. But it was a different kind of silence than before, not the silence of fear, the silence of respect. On Earth, in a small ceremony, Commander received medals for his fallen team members. 12 medals for 12 heroes. He spoke each name slowly, giving them the honor they deserved. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. They gave everything so that others might live. They showed the galaxy what humans can do when we fight for something greater than ourselves. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that held so many wonders and so many dangers. "The galaxy feared humanity before they knew us," he said. "Now they understand us. We are not conquerors. We are not monsters. We are protectors. We are the ones who stand between the darkness and the innocent." He raised his hand in a final salute. "And we will never stop fighting." Across the galaxy, Freed slaves told stories of the humans who came like ghosts and left like thunder. Children asked their parents to tell them about the 12 warriors who brought down an empire. Military academies studied the assault on Fortress Prime, trying to understand how the impossible became possible. And somewhere in the vastness of space, humanity continued to reach for the stars. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to explore, to protect, and to show the galaxy that even the smallest species could change the course of history. Though we're just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humanity could do. And they would never forget.